Hi, hey, hello. If you're new here, my name is Rain. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you stopping on by to my little corner of the internet. And to the theme of today's video, I'm sure you know from the title, is that I've just been having a really bad art week. And I want to kind of talk about why I think they're important, why I don't mind them, why I think I ended up having a really bad art week, and I want to do some of my quote-unquote not so great art in this video and show you just some of the stuff that I produced while not really feeling that great and not really having the best art week, you could say. And so I want to talk about this partially because it's just how my week has gone and I can't magically make better art appear out of nowhere. But secondly, because I think that transparency and discussing how bad art weeks just happen and how it's just kind of a portion or something that occurs when you are a creative individual is important for us, because I think when we exist on the internet, we really experience the illusion that all real artists and all these people have perfect art all the time. And so with that, I would really appreciate it if you draw alongside me throughout this video. Let me know in the comments what you get up to. I do believe that creating is a form of self-love, and so if you have time to do something creative, no matter what it is, I think that that is a beautiful thing, and I would love to hear about it. If you would like to tag me in anything you create, I would also love to see it. I'm on Instagram, Kara, Threads, Tumblr, and I think that's it. I don't actually know what socials I'm on. That's kind of sad. But with that being said, let's get into the video and let's talk about just how things have been going. So, for starters, I'm in a heat wave right now. So I live in the mountains and I get all of the seasons you can, for sure. It's something. However, with that, we have really harsh winters because we're in high elevation. So I'm talking a lot of snow and then really, really bad summers as well. It's mostly fall type weather where I live. We have a very short spring and a pretty short summer comparatively. But when I say I'm in a heat wave, I mean I'm in a heat wave. And because it's colder where I live for the majority of the year, and I live 2 hours from the coast, I went to school on the coast. Between my harsh winters, my school being in a cold, foggy area with a sea breeze, I and a lot of people around here just don't handle the summers the way we probably should. And so when I say that I have been trying to sleep as much of the days away as physically possible, I mean it wholeheartedly. It is so hot, and I also am a highly heat sensitive person with my chronic illness. And so, I mean, I already don't handle temperatures over 75 particularly well. They take a huge toll on me physically. And so, I've been sleeping, and when I'm not sleeping, I feel awful. It's causing my joints to feel like they're on fire. My chronic fatigue is worse than ever. I'm just overheating. I'm drowsy. I'm not even capable of being hungry. I feel awful. And so with that, and not to any surprise really, I just don't feel creative. I don't feel like I have the headspace to be creative. I've been only really drawing at night, and even at night it's been kind of hot, and I just feel awful. And so with feeling awful, and not in a kind of mental health sort of way, it's just not something that really lends itself to having much of a creative outlet component to it. Because when you have emotional turmoil and just an emotion that's really causing you to not feel great, that's really dictating how you're thinking, how you're behaving, how you're processing information, that's something that can be churned into creative energy. And while it might be something that is impeding you creatively, it's not something that's like physically holding you back a lot of the time. You know, it might be a huge mental barrier that's holding you back, but it's not something that's physically making the creation of art more difficult or more painful in terms of like your body is aching. My body is really not handling the heat well. My hands feel swollen even though they're not. Gripping things is hard. I almost feel like I can feel every tendon in my body when I try and move different parts of it. I just feel awful. And so with that, creating just isn't particularly as fun. Mentally, I want to do it and I want to produce good stuff. Physically, I feel like I'm trying to draw with my left hand though. I feel inexperienced, like I don't know what I'm doing, like I don't have the skill set and the dexterity to create what I want to create. And while this is not going to be the case for a lot of artists or many artists, it is the case for artists who do live in climates that really just hit them hard certain times of the year. Or artists like arthritis, like artists with arthritis they're not going to feel great ever when creating art. However, I believe the cold is worse with arthritis. That's definitely my grandma's report, but my grandma also lives in Los Angeles, so I don't know how much she counts. But, you know, when you're cold and your joints are aching more than usual, per my grandma's reports of having arthritis, you're not going to feel as creative, and creating is going to hurt more than your baseline standard, right? I have a chronic illness, and I'm accustomed to being in pain when I create art, because I'm always in pain. However, this is abnormally uncomfortable, right? I feel like I'm almost trying to draw with fingerless mittens on. I'm clumsy, you know, just to get an idea about why I'm just not feeling totally there and why it doesn't bother me. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, I am somebody who does have physical limitations. Now, I believe that artists who just aren't feeling great when they create, they're just having an off day, their mind is elsewhere, their body coordination isn't just where they need it to be. I don't think there should ever be a moment of shame, disabled or not, in just producing art that isn't up to your standard. And I definitely don't think that we should have shame in sometimes our sketches looking absolutely terrible per our standard, per our ideas, you know. There are days where we're going to be able to produce just an excellent sketch in 5-10 minutes, or get an idea out in a couple of minutes, and we're going to feel really good about it. We're going to feel great about our art, and we're going to feel powerful. And just like that, other days you can feel like your art is completely worthless and you're not a creative, and the imposter syndrome can become consuming. And I think that's one of the most important parts about having a YouTube channel, as somebody who is doing this purely because they love sharing their art and they love advocacy and they love having a community. I love having an art community, right? I think because I know that this is not implicating me job-wise, I have no issues with having a video where the artwork is just not wonderful or not to my standard, you know, because this is a part of the creative process for me. This is a bad art week. And I think if we had more videos and just sketches published by artists that we personally look up to that show their bad weeks, their not great weeks, or their kind of unpolished, not so wonderful sketchbook pages, that we would be able to kind of get rid of the stigma or the taboo of just not being 100% for a week. That's something that I look for in the artists that I look up to. And I wish I got to encounter a lot more on the social medias that I enjoy watching content on and consuming content on. I kind of wish that it was easier for me to look at the artists that I truly adore and see the 10 not great sketches they had earlier the week to get to the finished piece that I'm seeing today. You know, there are artists who have post almost exclusively finished polished art on their page, and yes, I really like their polished work, but I'm really interested in seeing deeper into their creative process. You know, it's why people like speed paints a lot of the time, or just casual draw with me's like this. There's a enjoyment and a pleasure that can be found in seeing the creative process and seeing how other people process information, the ugly stages and all of that. And I wish it was just more accessible. Maybe that is entirely my bias as an art consumer. You know, if I wasn't an artist, would I still want to see the less than 100% work? I like to think that I would, because I think knowing how other people take something and turn it into something else is really interesting. I like to think that, but I'm a different, not person, but I have a very different mindset to when I started drawing, right? And so maybe it is also kind of this ignorance or this desire that I have for artists that I really liked when I was younger and starting out, and wishing that the process was more digestible so that I could feel better about my own process. I don't know if that's the best way to put it. So instead, let's frame it as when you look up to an artist and you love their work and you want to draw like them one day or be able to create polished work like them one day, when they don't show the process, you don't get to see the sketch, and you don't really get a framework or a roadmap to how you got from point A to point B. And when there is no point A, just that end destination, it feels like there's no universe in which you can get there, right? You don't have any groundwork to understand or comprehend just how. And maybe that's also part of why I highly value and so desperately love consuming the content of my own followers when they share it with me, and you guys comment so I can check your profiles. By the way, if you have art on your profile and you comment, I probably have seen it. Probably. Sometimes I can't tell based on profile pictures and names, but if your profile picture indicates that you might have created it, or you have art in your name, I'm clicking and I'm like, I want to see what the people who watch me like to create. So by the way, but also just tell me if you want me to look at your stuff. I'm always super stoked about it. It feels more like a community when I get to reciprocate the engagement and the praise and the excitement. I hope that makes sense. But with that, I think that one of the best parts about becoming a creator is that I'm now more easily being shown other creators whom have morals that align with mine a little bit more, and do show their less than 100% work. And maybe I just never thought about sketchbook sessions much until I was thinking about creating a channel and I was really researching what I would want to do. But when it comes to the YouTube channel I have where I watch my content, like my law tube, my natural science videos, my financial videos, my music videos, things like that. The channel where I like consume the majority of my non-art interest, which I've had for a lot of years. I used to watch art on that channel. Just the standard channel that comes into existence when you make a YouTube account to watch videos. I used to watch art on that channel, but I feel like a lot of the artists that did post, I don't want to say I even grew out of their content. I feel like their content almost changed in a way that I just wasn't particularly interested in. One of my all-time favorite artists is on a hiatus for health reasons. They just stopped posting videos, and that's Drawing with Waffles. I think I've mentioned them like 5 times on my channel, how much I love their art and how much I'm hoping for their absolute greatest recovery and hopefully a return to social media in some capacity, just to, know they're okay. But there's that. But other channels, I feel like a lot of them stopped creating art as much as they started taking on art challenges and maybe trying things that just didn't interest me. And because those videos didn't interest me when they did return to art or they did produce art videos, the challenge phase of YouTube had been so long standing, I wouldn't have watched some of those channels for a couple of months because they were just doing challenge videos. And I'm talking like the early to mid 2010s is what I think I'm talking about. Even I'm not 100% certain, but I'm talking about the like 1 marker challenge, 2 marker challenge, 3 marker challenge, the 10-minute, 5-minute, 10 seconds, or 10-minute, 1 minute, 10 seconds. I'm trying to think of the other ones. Or like trying to draw with 2 hands. I can't even think of them off the top of my head, but there was a huge phase where those were incredibly prominent on YouTube, and they were super interesting for a moment, and then I just kind of missed the not challenge videos, and because of that, a lot of the artists I did watch, I just didn't find a connection with anymore, which is fine, and we all grow up. And I've actually found a lot of them I've returned to loving again since coming to YouTube on a different channel and really getting to explore smaller creators and then reintroduce myself to those bigger creators I moved on from in favor of other artists. And I'm really thoroughly enjoying them again. And those creators, like the first one that comes to mind is Bailey J. I used to, I think her channel's just Bailey J. I think she has like 3 channels, one for her business, gaming, and art. And so I'm not 100%, but, yeah, I've kind of returned and I've kind of fallen in love with watching YouTube art again. And that's mostly been because I've been watching other small creators. Not that I'm small anymore. 1,000 people is absurd, and that's a lot of people, so I'm not really small anymore, I guess. But other creators who are newer to the platform, I mean, I don't even think I can say newer anymore. I've had my 1-year upload anniversary. I feel like I blinked and now I'm here. It's been very wild. But I'm falling back in love with art as a kind of social thing by watching other people just create the art they want to create without concern about things like the algorithm that kind of birthed the kind of art challenge videos that were so prevalent. And so I don't think I articulated my point super effectively at the beginning, but I was effectively trying to get across that the algorithm encouraged certain type of videos that made art YouTube not so fun several years ago. And I moved on to different content for a while, consumption-wise, watching less art because I just didn't feel it anymore. And now that I'm back to it and now that I'm better at finding creators who don't care about adhering to trends, I'm very much enjoying all of the beautiful stuff I get to see, all of the live streams. I feel like I found a part of YouTube that younger me needed and didn't have. And I don't know if that's a change of the times, and that's more of a modern thing, or if younger me just didn't know how to look in the right places. And if those just aren't pushed out enough that it's easier for people to find. I don't know. I know I'm getting kind of philosophical with my rambling, but I very much have been enjoying seeing people enjoying art again. And I've been very much enjoying being more relaxed with my art as well. And making a video like this where I'm not necessarily proud of the work, but I'm okay with that because I had something I really wanted to talk about, and it aligns with my philosophies on art, and I'm excited to get to talk with you guys in the comments regardless of how I feel about the art I produced. And, you know, ultimately, there is a bit of an anxiety with it when there is such a huge rise of artificial intelligence generated imagery. But when it comes to AI and image production from other artists' stolen works, I feel like it almost created an increased anxiety to create perfect work and to be better than AI. And that put a skill set level on them that I don't think it deserves at all. So, because when we look at AI and then we try and compare ourselves to it or other artists to it, or when you aren't an artist and so you're thinking about purchasing, or you're not entirely sure what you want, what you're looking for, but you see this beautiful piece of art, AI has set a skill set level for very particular art styles that just isn't attainable for a lot of beginner artists, and so it also creates this additional illusion of not being good enough. Because before we had real artists telling their journey in association with us maybe not feeling like we're good enough or like we're ever going to get there, right? We're never going to be as successful as our favorites, right? And I don't think we ever will believe that we're as successful as our favorites. I think when we look at people whom we love their art so much, at least the way I perceive it, I love their art so much that I don't know that I'm capable of loving my own art enough to feel like I'm at their level, because success for me as an artist isn't monetary or necessarily about my own pride as much as it is the feeling that my art and other people's art gives to other people. And so when I am so awestruck by another artist's work, I don't know if I can ever be that awestruck by my own work and therefore be as successful as them, because you can never truly know how other people are interpreting your art. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's not necessarily where I was trying to go with this thought process about how I just think that AI has really heightened the standard for beginner artists that they set upon themselves, because as a beginner, you might not necessarily be able to tell what is AI. And when AI is mostly trained off of very successful artists, generally of certain art styles, so you'll have those kind of, the kind of classic anime style, right? You're going to see a lot of AI in that style because it's something that's very appealing to a wider audience of people and therefore more marketable, right? My art style, I don't believe, is as appealing to a broad audience as an anime art style. My art style, the way that I draw things, isn't going to make people want to purchase it as much as that general art style that people very much know and love is going to, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. However, if you're a beginner artist and that's something that you want to go into, is your passion, is really how you like to draw, and you're honing that art style and it's a skill set you want to learn, you're maybe going to be referencing AI that is going to be making fundamental mistakes that aren't necessarily great. Or two, you're going to think it's AI and get insecure about your art because at the end of the day, AI is as flawed as the human artist who trained it, right? We can see art of a particular style and believe it's perfect and believe it is the absolute pinnacle of the pinnacle, but it's still all made by human hand. Real art is made with a human who put some sort of material to a tablet or paper and they created, right? And I'm very firm in that because I believe that people in wheelchairs, if they paint their wheels and they wheel around, that is art if they are doing it with intention and desire and they are pursuing a creative vision of themselves or their art, you know? I don't believe we're limited to the method with which we put that on the paper, depending on the ability. Now, if an able-bodied person does it, I don't necessarily believe that holds the same intention as somebody who lives the experience a lot of the time. However, I'm willing to listen to it and hear it out on a case-by-case basis. I'm just, generally speaking, more inclined to say if a able-bodied artist draws with their feet, I'm more inclined to find more desire and more passion in a person who has no choice but to draw with their feet. Not no choice, but rather they don't have hands, and thus they choose their feet instead in favor of other methods, right? So, I don't really know how relevant that is to what I'm trying to say, but where ultimately everything that trains AI is based off of the people who have created. The real people, the real artist, not AI. And thus, I am very firm in the belief and this kind of mindset of mine that AI can be flawed in a way that looks deceptively real. Equally so, humans are capable of being flawed in a way that can be clocked as AI. I think I have tried to cut it out pretty good, not in this video, but there was another video where I was sketching and I drew the hand backwards on accident. I put the thumb on the wrong side because I was referencing my own hand as I was facing it, forgetting that the pose I was supposed to be looking at my reflection. So not as it was in front of me, but as my hand was on the opposite side of me. I don't know how I spaced it. It was probably part of the heat wave, because this heat wave's 3 weeks long, and I was delirious. But also, sometimes I just make mistakes like that. As you could see earlier in this video, the hand that I was drawing isn't good at all. It's a bad hand. And that's okay. I'm fine with it, you know? It's definitely not an AI drawn hand, but it's still a really bad hand in my opinion for my skill set and how I usually like to draw hands. I draw a better hand later. That one just wasn't working for me. I wasn't getting it how I wanted it to. My reference wasn't vibing with me. I wasn't understanding it, right? And that's fine. However, because of that, real artists can also make mistakes. And then there was one thing I was thinking about early on when the AI thing was like, you have to check the amount of fingers. I was thinking about people who make characters that have multiple fingers. You know, there are people out there who have extra fingers. And I'm concerned that artists who do representation art of things, like people with extra fingers, and extra toes and stuff like that, are going to start getting lambasted for creating representation as AI. They're going to be lambasted for looking like AI because they're creating representation, and AI has created a stigma and has made it, not a stigma, AI has made it so that we can't trust art. And when we can't trust art, we can't trust the artist all the time. And thus, it gets complicated to try and differentiate between artists who are creating representation and AI garbage. Not that I think, like, the only character I can think of off the top of my head with 6 fingers is Stan's brother in Gravity Falls. He had 6 fingers, right? Or was it just the book? But the book had his handprint, right? It was his hand, right? He has 6 fingers, right? And is he AI? No. Although that would make a great meme now. predicting the future of AI with Bill Cipher and whatever, but it's just that I'm so increasingly annoyed about AI. The more I think about all of the things that it's ruining for beginner artists specifically. Now, the market is going to be harder to get into. Social media is going to be harder because people are going to get even more accustomed to highly polished art, except it's going to be highly polished garbage created by AI. And so it is going to be flooding more feeds. It's going to be harder to find the artists that you actually want to connect with. However, when an AI bro talks, you can tell they're an AI bro because they clearly have never done art before in their life. And that makes their personality and the ability to be personable with them as an audience and as a lover of their work that isn't their work, because AI images are not real art or real artwork, and you didn't put work in to create it that is worthy of titling it as work. That's my opinion. Don't sue me. In Minecraft or whatever the kids say these days. Oh, I'm so bad at this. But that's just where I'm standing with it, and thus they don't have the personability to be successful as an artist the way a lot of artists need to be successful. You know, people aren't necessarily watching my channel because they like my art, and just because they like my art, because to watch my videos you have to either mute me and put something else on and stare at the content, or not have wonderful hearing, so maybe my audio doesn't go loud enough for you to hear me, and don't have closed captions on, or you are sitting here and you're listening to me talk or reading me talk, right? You're consuming the words that I am saying in some form or another, be it through closed captioning or through audio, and thus you are consuming my words and me as an individual and the opinions that I put into the content I create, and the messaging and the theories and the philosophy and all of the nonsense that I talk about art and my work and the things that I think about and why I make the decisions that I make, right? And so would you watch my content if you didn't at least tolerate me as an individual? Probably not, because there are thousands of artists out there, and I believe that my art is unique to me and personal, but I also don't believe that anything is truly 100% unique, right? And so you can find art that you like anywhere in any artist. I am not the only one. A lot of my subscribers, a lot of you guys, a lot of the people sitting here right now are artists who create amazing work, and you can find them when they comment on my videos, and you can find other artists who you might like more than me, might like listening to more than me, and that's okay. However, when there's an AI bro talking, you can tell that they don't have that personality and personability and connection to their own work that is indicative of a real artist, and thus the art becomes even more lifeless than it already was. Because even when you hate a real artist, that real artist still has something to say about their work. Even if you don't like it, it still makes the work mean something more than somebody who assigns a meaning to a pre-generated image, right? And so I think that I'm concerned about artists as they're coming into this new world, and I don't know how much I would have had the commitment and the grit to really stick with art when I would be flooded with AI. Not that my art would be good enough to be accused of being AI, but I would be seeing it everywhere, right? If I was in this landscape and sphere. And so I feel like we need to be and create more authenticity and shows of the process of what it means to be a real artist. Both because at this point everyone's going to be accused of being AI no matter how obvious their work isn't AI is, right? So authenticity and showing the process and being honest about the art process in ways that we weren't in the early 2000s, we weren't in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. I almost messed that up because we couldn't be or we didn't care. You know, there are artists who did those nice classical paintings. Those artists could spend 3, 4, 5 years on one painting living in some rich dude's basement and just working on that. And we would never see those processes, those sketches, all of the bad art it took to get there because we know them for that one singular finished piece. And some artists, one artist whom I really like the stylistic and color decisions of, I don't really know how I feel about him as a person, is John Singer Sargent. You know, paintings like Madame X. I love the way his work looks. He has some of his sketches available, not him personally, but you can see some of his sketches, but nothing like his beginner sketchbook, per se. Nothing like the first strokes he ever did and circles he'd ever drawn, and that's something that I think is good to just be honest about now, because even when it comes to art history and they show us sketches, they don't show the bad ones, and if they do, they say that it's the finest piece of artwork on the planet and it sells for $500, and that's wild. I don't even know how to fully synthesize and process my thought about this, just that I'm having a thought and I care a lot about it. But I guess ultimately I'm very happy about this video. While I don't like the work, I don't like the spread per se, I'm very happy to sit here, talk about my feelings on the matter, why I don't mind it, and why I think it's important for growth as an artist, which I haven't gotten to yet. That's the next step in the video, by the way. But also because I think that this is the type of video that beginner me probably needed. Beginner me probably needed to see artists talking about how their art isn't going to look good every week. And there are going to be times in art where you have maybe a month of creating art that you just don't like and you feel like a failure and you don't know what's wrong with you. And that's okay. And you're going to come out of it and you're going to be like, wow, my art's popping. Who am I? A new person? Not really. No, you toughed through a bunch of art you weren't proud of to create something better in the future. And younger me needed to hear that, and I really want that to be the main takeaway from this video. That if you persevere and you push through, you will create art that you are proud of. And you need to do those bad phases and have those bad weeks and realize why they're important, which is what I'm getting to soon, so that you can truly appreciate those moments. So, while I really encourage beginner artists to kind of focus what they're practicing and or how they're approaching practicing into a handful of things, if you want to study human anatomy, for example, study human anatomy. Don't also do perspective landscape drawing, teach yourself how to draw dogs, and specifically only dogs, but also maybe whales. And spread yourself super thin across a variety of subject matters. Just really try human anatomy for a while. And then apply those core basic concepts like hatching, shading, form, shape, those things. Apply that to your human anatomy practice, right? There is next to nothing in art that is specific to one type of drawing that you can't do all of your basics in what you choose to do, right? All of those things I said that you can practice with human anatomy, you can also practice with landscapes. And you can also really practice with if you want to just draw cars, right? Or dogs, you know, you're going to be doing form, shape, hatching, shading, you'll get a good grasp of composition, how objects look in relation to each other, proportions, all of that. You're going to be learning it. And you're going to be applying that information to whatever handful of things you pick. Preferably, when I say a handful, I mean people, and maybe a few subsects of people, like an elf, or maybe you want to draw some dwarves and practice dwarves, and you want to get a little fantastical with it, but nothing like going from human to landscape to, what else do people draw? Human, landscape, and cars. Pokemon. I don't know. Preferably you focus on human anatomy and you get your skill set down, and then you graduate on to exploring other interests once you've kind of shown and practiced your skill set and your conscious art making, right? And I've seen this advice from a lot of other artists, especially self-taught artists or teachers who aren't collegiate teachers. They're more so they teach their own courses, and it is an effective method. A few artists I've encountered, both internet-wise and in person, like at their school, through school. I'm an online student, that's why it's weird. They're like, I had a teacher tell me to draw, like, it was something like pigeons every day for a year. And he was like, by the end of it, I hated pigeons. But it was one of the best exercises I ever did because I really learned how to draw pigeons and apply all of these fundamental skills to pigeons. And because I only focused on one thing, I learned how to apply them to the absolute best of my ability because my subject wasn't changing and I could see the entire evolution of my art process and all the progress I made, which is one reason why it's really good. If you're drawing a bunch of different things, it's a little bit harder to track progress. Equally, it allows you to focus in on something you're passionate about and ideally not force yourself to practice things that you just aren't interested in. And I don't stick hard to this rule at all. I didn't. It wasn't something I super stuck to. I mostly just did human anatomy, but I of course branched out and drew other things from time to time. And I think that's also healthy as a beginner artist to explore passion and to explore interest. But what is very important about this is that you're also practicing conscious decision making, practicing making marks, and practicing the actual muscle memory to creating art. And so that's why, and my long-winded way of articulating why all of this is so important, and the creation of bad art is just a sign that you are getting a lot better. Because you're now able to look at your art and you're able to critically analyze, why does it look wrong? Why does my art look bad? What is it about this particular piece that isn't working for me? I made a really bad hand, right? And I can tell myself all the reasons why the hand looks wrong to me. I didn't define the wrist to hand ratio effectively. You can't tell the wrist is really a wrist and that it's leading into a hand. The face doesn't look like it's resting on the hand. It looks like something in front of it, like a separate component. You know, they're not interacting with each other the way I had wanted them to. The fingers are a little funky in proportion. They don't overlap in perspective correctly. And I can tell myself all of the things that are wrong with it. And I can see it. I know it's wrong. And I tried a few times and I didn't quite get it. So I'm setting it down. I moved on to other art pieces, marking on the spread some more. And I'm going to return to that hand and the sketch and this composition later. And this was a learning experience for me on all of the things that I just did wrong. Didn't go out right. I didn't articulate on the page with my drawing. And I now know all of these things so that I can think about them consciously when I do my next attempt at this type of composition in the future. And I know how I need to pose my reference and study my reference, and I know I need to think about the shapes some more. And it's hard to articulate verbally, but it becomes something that's kind of second nature when you're drawing. You realize why things don't look right to you, and you don't even really have to think, why don't I like this? You know why you don't like it. You can't always fix it in the moment. You don't have the skill set or the brain power or the understanding you need to execute it, but you know why. And that's a big part of it, is getting to the point where you don't have to ask yourself, why don't I like this? You can say, oh, I need to change this in the future. And bad weeks like this is your way of kind of proving to yourself that you're executing it. I can think of a lot of things that I really just hated on this page, and I just really want to not do in the future. And that's great. But I'm also still going out of my way to sit down, and I'm making marks, and I'm making the conscious decision to create because I love it, and I'm not punishing myself for creating something that I'm not proud of, right? I'm going to move on from this spread, and I'm just going to sit here. I might put sticky notes over it from time to time, because I'll draw on-drawn sticky notes, and I'll need to put them somewhere, and I'll be like, oh, I don't like this page that much, I'll put it here, right? I don't care if this gets covered. And it might collect some things over time. I might put some figure drawings in between these pages. But it's going to sit here, and I'm not going to think about it again. And I'm going to look back on it probably in 4 months and be like, hey, I actually really like this composition. I want to try it again. And that's another part of the creation process that just needs to be personal to you. How you approach art that you don't like is about you and your cathartic experience. However, I do hope that I can encourage anyone who has a bad art week to not destroy the art they make during their bad art week. It was really tempting to completely cover this page in paint and start over at a different time, but I need to be honest with myself and say I didn't have a good week, and that's fine. And maybe in a year, when I'm near the end of the sketchbook, I will decide that I want to cover it, and I hope I don't. I hope I have the willpower to say that this is a part of the journey and I shouldn't cover it. So, I hope that articulated something important and effective to you guys, and gave you guys a hopefully a little bit better outlook on bad art weeks, if that's something that you don't take very well. I'd love to know how you guys approach your bad art weeks. And your quote-unquote bad art, right? What do you do when you hate a sketch? Do you light it on fire, shred it, cover it, crumble it and throw it away? What do you guys do? And did I change your perspective on keeping it? I don't know if I did or not. I'm maybe a bit more sentimental than others, so maybe it's more so that component of my personality that makes me like that. But I think that this is ultimately the best way to leave it. I actually have to film the outro clip, so I'm finishing the voiceover before the outro for once. So, I guess all of this is to say that I really appreciate you all sitting all the way through this video, joining me on my bad art week, listening to me talk about bad art, why AI is stupid, and why I'm just appreciative that I sat down and created, even though I don't like the art necessarily. This is not to say that the art in this video is bad. It's just not my best work, and I felt bad throughout the week, right? I wasn't producing work up to par for me, and I felt bad, I was off my game, you can say. I still think these sketches are drastically better than anything I drew in my sketchbook before my last one, right? This is better than my absolute best work when I was a beginner, and you know what? That's progress for me, even if I don't feel great about it now. Oh, my cats are excited. So I guess that means I need to go now. So I would love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions in the comments. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe. I will put my last week's video, which is a really, really awesome drawing I did that I'm actually super proud of, to balance the not super enthusiastic art of this video. I will put that up in the tag specifically if you want to see something that is my good work. And I think that's it. So like if you like, dislike if you dislike, comment, subscribe. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are. And bye-bye.